we'll go ahead and get started. I know people are kind of coming in, but we don't want to waste too much time here. So welcome to the Uplink. We're here with Abeeway, doing some really cool stuff, and they're going to talk about a really neat use case that we got to kind of see a preview of yesterday. And if you're a pet owner, this is going to be really cool. And it was really interesting to see that. So we're excited for that. I'm Jacob Swin, by the way. I'm the product marketing manager at Helium. So if, people are used to probably seeing Travis or Mark on here. So I'm new running the Uplink, although I shaved my beard the other day, so I pretty much look exactly like Mark. So it's not a far trip if you're used to seeing Mark on here. I just did a little intro there. I'm going to talk about Helium quickly, and then we'll get right into it with Abeeway, with Tior and Olivier doing an intro and some use case overviews. They're going to talk about how to provision a device on the Helium network, looking at their device manager and providing a demonstration for that, and then taking a look at their mobile app and again, a demonstration for that. And for the last 10 or 15 minutes, we'll pull some questions from the chat. So if you have questions for Abeeway, please type them into the chat. We'll get to them. And I have some moderators who can answer some things kind of quickly in the chat if they see that. All right. Just a little about Helium. Helium was founded in 2013 with a mission to make it easier to build decentralized wireless networks. And that's been made possible with backing from some of the best VC firms in the world. And the growth has just been amazing in the last even like 18 months. It's been huge. So that's been really exciting. Helium is an incentive built network. So using the Helium network, anyone, anywhere, they can be rewarded for creating wireless coverage. So hosts earn HNT both for creating coverage and when their devices use the hotspot to connect to the internet. So all of that makes it so there's the opportunity to make an affordable nationwide, worldwide wireless network that can be rapidly built. And then why Helium? So a focus on applications, not network building. So Helium is the largest public IoT network in the world. I think I had to edit this slide because it said the US before, but now we can put the world on there, which is really cool. And accelerated coverage. I mean, we're growing incredibly quickly. I think actually I put 54,000 plus hotspots on the network right now. I think I just checked a few minutes ago and it's actually at 55. So it's just constantly growing. That always needs to be updated. In over almost 6,000 cities, 78 countries across the globe. And there's also over 200,000 hotspots just on order right now. So the network is really, really growing quickly. And we have a really diverse ecosystem with partners and hardware makers, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Low costs for the network, less than $1 per sensor per year. So it's very cost effective. And it's really accessible. Pretty much any off-the-shelf LoRaWAN sensor that you can find can operate on the Helium network. So it makes it really easy to use and operate on the network. All right, I mentioned the ecosystem of hardware partners, and these have been approved by the community through our HIP-19. And these makers just are creating gateways to be able to operate on the Helium network. So makers such as Rack, Bobcat, Syncrobit, Nebra, a couple others as well. And a few of the users on the Helium network. We have Salesforce, Lime, Digital Matter, lots of different users on here that are really doing exciting and cool things operating on the network. And it's really neat to see all the different applications that they're doing that are just really forward thinking. And with that, if you can go to helium.com, you can find different ways to kind of join the movement and grow the network. You can always get in touch with us through email. My email up here, again, I'm Jacob, the product marketing manager. It's just jacob@helium.com. Mark, who is on these a lot, he's the head of business development. His is just mark@helium.com. And we're also on GitHub, on Twitter, and on Discord. And Discord's growing really fast. I think we're over 70,000 members on there, and there's a lot of good information, a lot of good conversations happening on there. So if you're looking for some sort of info or just want to talk to other community members and stuff about Helium, Discord's a place to go for that. With that, I think I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to these guys at Abeeway, and they're going to, again, take you through a really cool demonstration of what their products can do.
Thanks, Jacob. So my name is Olivier. I'm heading ACTILITY and its subsidiary Abeeway. We'll be talking about geolocation. As you expect, it's a very exciting application for any wide area network, and particularly in this case, something that you can extend with your neighbors' hotspots and get more and more coverage through collaboration. It's really the perfect use case. It can be used throughout the industry, many use cases as we will see later on. Quick words on us. ACTILITY is a group that has been active on LoRaWAN since the beginning. I'm one of the authors of the LoRaWAN spec back many years ago. Abeeway is a fully owned subsidiary that specializes only in geolocation. As we will see later on, LoRaWAN really allows geolocation and tracker battery life to extend much more than previously. And we've been working seriously on that for a while. We've sold and installed over 250,000 trackers already. And we're producing about 2,000 to 3,000 a day. We have shareholders, many well-known companies here. So what you're looking in terms of key features for geolocation, this is primarily battery life, because it's very annoying to recharge a tracker, and in a business environment, it's also very costly to replace batteries or even to recharge. But also you're looking for something that's reliable. If you walk outdoors, you need the GPS to log fast. You need to be able to use any constellation. More and more people want indoor and outdoor geolocation. You don't want to choose. You don't want to be using a specific tracker inside, another tracker outside. And of course, you're looking for something that is relatively affordable. So we've been trying to address all this through a number of exclusive technologies. The first one is technology that we call low power GPS. You're all familiar with assisted GPS, which really changed the way GPS were working on mobile phones. Unfortunately, that requires very high bandwidth on the phones, and we don't have this on low power networks. So we have a specific patent that leverages the time properties of LoRaWAN LP1 networks in general and LoRaWAN to replicate what assisted GPS does. And that's essentially doing the whole resolution in the cloud. And of course, this is offloading a lot of computation from the device itself, but there are many other advantages. The first one is high speed of locking. If you're walking from indoors to outdoors, again, we're talking about hybrid geolocation, where your dog, for example, is not going to just stay outdoors all the time. So you really want to have a very fast GPS lock when you walk outside. And you want your GPS to be able to lock even in relatively adverse connection conditions in the middle of thunderstorms, rain, and so on, where the ephemeral download from satellites will require a very high signal, and assisted GPS in this case allows to lock no matter what the outdoor conditions are. We also have a gain of about 10x on power compared to non-assisted GPS, and very high sensitivity. So that's all implemented in the devices. The other innovation that we have implemented in these trackers is multi-mode fusion. GPS is not always the best way to geolocate, particularly in cities. This is actually a trip I did last weekend coming back from the UK with a car. And you can see that as I was driving outside of big cities, GPS, the red dots here, was the best way of geolocating. But then as I entered Paris and the suburb where I live, there are many buildings, lots of reflections on GPS, and lots of Wi-Fi access points. So when you're in these locations, actually Wi-Fi turns out to be the very best way to geolocate, and it's way more efficient power-wise than doing a GPS geolocation. So the device would just switch dynamically to Wi-Fi. And so it's constantly switching between different modes. We can use Wi-Fi, we can do BLE, Bluetooth, as Thior will show in a minute, low power GPS and regular GPS, and all the tracker is mixing all these modes to optimize battery. So the way it works is Wi-Fi works by sniffing passively. So we don't need to get any passwords. We just sniff passively all the access points around us, retrieve the signal power, transmitted to a backend database, and from there we're able to triangulate position. This works indoor and outdoor, and this is typically the best way of geolocating in dense urban environments. We're also able to use BLE sniffing, so that is very interesting when you get multiple rooms and want to know exactly in which room are people. So this is more for business use. Very efficient. The BLE beacons are very, very cheap. They last for years on battery. You can just stick them on the wall. And this allows to have fairly high quality indoor geolocation in multiple room environments or factories. So that's also supported by the trackers, as you'll see later on. In terms of form factor, there are many use cases. So this is the smallest one. It's actually smaller than you see on the picture. This is what you would put in a bag, in a handbag, on keys, or attached to your favorite pet's collar. Small form factor, rechargeable battery that you can recharge through USB. This is a badge holder actually, so you can slide in your access badge, and it will add tracking capabilities to it. Also, COVID proximity detection, lots of features that can be enabled by this badge. It's used, we've sold over 100,000 today. It is used in worker safety context for guard tours, to check that someone effectively has been through all the checkpoints, many use cases around this one. When you want to track assets, we have two form factors. We have this big one and slightly smaller one that this one can charge from regular AA batteries. The other one is running on a primary battery. And these are ensuring very long operation on batteries. You can put them on trains, on trucks, anything that is related to asset tracking. Talking about battery lifetime, you can expect years of operation with these devices with typically 3 years if you have 5 positions per day. So that's exactly where LoRaWAN is making a breakthrough. And if you combine the power optimization of geolocation techniques that we're using together with the low power of LoRaWAN, that's really a breakthrough in terms of ROI for trackers today. The last technology we're implementing is very flexible ways of triggering the fixes, the GPS or Wi-Fi fixes. You can trigger them only when you're in motion. You can trigger them periodically. You can trigger them only when you start or when you stop. If you think of a train, you don't really care where the train is at a given moment. You need to know where the train car stopped and when it starts. On parkings, when we work with cars on parkings, that's also the mode that we're selecting. You can also track just activity, number of steps, this type of things. That's, I think, enough on theory. In terms of use cases, this is one of the biggest ones today, tool tracking. So they use these black compact trackers on every toolbox, and the compact tracker is checking presence of tools around it. We have BLE tags attached on all tools, and overall, there are, this is one of the largest construction companies in the world, and they are tracking all their tools this way. We're also tracking engine cradles. This is really closed loop logistics. Any box, anything that gets recycled across many sites, you can track and see where it is, monitor how long it remains in any site. It's also obviously used for tracking of machinery equipment on sites. Worker safety. This is a site we have in Oman, a very big refinery, thousands of workers, and they're tracked in case of a fire or any emergency. The firemen can know exactly where every worker is at a given point, and they can be retrieved faster. We're using it in a number of subway construction sites as well worldwide to track people inside tunnels. And similar use case, when there is an emergency situation, you can get to the people more quickly. Public works, it's used a lot for dumpster tracking, any sorts of moving assets, moving toilets, moving shelters, quite popular in these closed campus areas. But you're going to introduce a more fun use case for cats and dogs. Anything, again, related to closed loop logistics, any asset that's moving across several sites, LoRaWAN is really a perfect technology for this type of use cases. Last but not least, in these times, these badges have been used a lot for contact tracing. You can enable the feature. They will compute dynamically the amount of exposure you have to each and every contact around you. As soon as you've had enough exposure, they will record it, report it to backend. And if you really stay too long in contact with a given person, it will ring and tell you to walk away. This is used in Japan, in Germany, many factories in the US as well. And it's been used successfully to immediately detect the contamination clusters around any given employee and tell them to stay at home before they may contaminate other people. You can get your own. We've done a special landing page for Helium. So you just need to memorize the URL. It's called market.thinkpark.com. There is a search screen. You can just type Helium and you will find it. You can buy any form factor of these trackers. The easiest one to use, I think, for consumer type use cases, the micro tracker that you can see here. And with that, enough of theoretical talk. I'll let Fior describe what you can do with the demo app that's provided called Abeeway Device Manager.
Thank you, Olivier, and hello everyone. So my name is Fior Santander. I'm leading the operations for Abeeway and ACTILITY in North America and Latin America. And give me a second to share my screen. All right. And today, what I want to discuss is to show you a bit how to provision the device, how to configure your Helium portal to send the data to our Abeeway Device Manager application, and to show you a use case that I could use around me here. So to start, when you buy one of our devices, and I don't know if you can see me on camera. So this is one of the micro trackers that Olivier was talking about, and this is what I actually put on my dog. You receive the keys for the device, of course. And with these keys, simply go in the devices, add device, fill in the form with the keys that you have, and that's it. Once your device is provisioned, then you will need to have an application to send the data to. So you can send, of course, to any type of application. But if you want to use the Abeeway Device Manager, you will start by creating your accounts. So when you receive the device, you also receive the user guide. So all the URLs I'm showing here are in the user guide. So don't worry, and you don't have to memorize those URLs. But you can go on community.thinkpark.com and sign up here to create a free account. Once you have your account, going back to the Helium portal, you just need to create a custom HTTP application and fill in the URL available in the documentation, and add the client ID header with your username and the client secret with password. And in the gist, that's about it. All the details again are in the documentation, so don't worry about that. Once you have that in place and allocate the corresponding label to your device, you would start sending the data to the Abeeway Device Manager. Going to the Abeeway Device Manager. So first of all, I wanted to show you. So this is what I did. I attached the micro tracker I showed you on my dog's collar, and I started to see what I could find, like where she was spending time, and what kind of technology was used in different places. So on the Abeeway Device Manager, let me take my account. So the Abeeway Device Manager on this one is really more of a B2B application where you will be able to see the possibility of the device, configure the device, find your device on a map. Just after that, Olivier will present the mobile version of this application, which is more of a B2C oriented application. In here, this is all the devices that I have available, and I'm going to choose the ones that I want to work with on that particular session. So in my case, I want the device that I attached on my dog collar. Getting here, since I'm going to talk about my dog tracking use case, I'm only going to describe the first 5 tabs, starting with the device that shows me my device. It could be a list of devices and information like the firmware version running on that device, but also the operating mode of that device. So in this case, I'm on motion tracking, and also the battery life of my device. To give a bit more information about how I configure the device, and that's going to become useful in a few minutes. The device is configuring motion tracking, so every time my dog moves, I'm receiving a message. And I also configure the device so that if my dog stops moving, I'm still receiving a message, but every 4 hours. So I'm going to show you that in a minute. If I click here, I get more radio statistics about my device itself. The second tab is probably the most interesting one, will show me the map. So it zooms in on where I have the data available. And so, as I said, I'm based out of Canada, Quebec in particular, around Montreal. And I'm going to show you, if I can remove this. I'm going to show you the coverage map from Helium. So here is Montreal, and I'm kind of north of Montreal. The lone gateway you see here is actually me. And so there's nothing around me, there's nothing in between. So while doing my getting for the presentation, found something interesting. So I went over the weekend in Montreal, and so here's where I am. Here's Montreal. As soon as I got to Montreal, since there's coverage, I can see my data there. The red dots correspond to GPS, so I see my GPS data around here. Around where I live, let me zoom in. So coming back from Montreal, and yeah, another point. So I'm in the middle of nowhere, and to know that in my house I don't have cellular coverage. One of the reasons being that I have a metal roof that is blocking that signal. And I have one Helium gateway hotspot in the middle of my living room. And the interesting thing is, like, and that's about a mile away, even a mile away, while I don't receive cellular inside the house, I was able to get the GPS signal from my tracker. So I thought it was fun. And so keeping in mind that the tracker was on my dog's collar, which was in her kennel, inside the trunk of my car. So yeah, not really the ideal situation, but it worked well. Zooming even a bit more. So I can see the house here. And I can see around the house where the dog has been. From here, if I want to remove part of the data, typically because I would not be interested to see where I went over the weekend, for example, I can just slide this until it removes my last weekend. There you go. So now I have only the recent time and around my house. So in red, I have the GPS data of where my dog went. And if I keep zooming in, and let me remove that for a second. Now we can see the house better. One thing you can do with this app is you can also create your own user map of indoor places. In my case, I created a map of my house where I was able to put the location of all the BLE beacons that I put. And so Olivier was telling that it's small things. This is the example of the BLE beacon that I've been using. So I put several of those around the house. And so loading my map shows me where in my house I put different beacons, and typically I put those beacons where I expected the dog to be. So either in the front door, in the front window looking at us going grocery shopping, where she's sleeping, in the basement, or at the back door. And so from there I can show the BLE data that I got from there and where my dog is. So in this case I'm showing almost a week worth of movement of my dog in the house. And surprisingly, she's not spending time in the front door at all. I was not expecting that. So those are the kind of thing that you can see with the map, creating your own maps if you were to track something in a warehouse, for example, or any kind of indoor places. To create that map, so you can import what we call a GeoJSON map. You can find any kind of way to create that type of map. GeoJSON.io is something that you can use, but any other type of application that can help you create those type of maps. And basically just creating polygons and putting on the map the BLE beacons with their either MAC address or IDs. So far on this map, I was showing the different dots and what technology I've been using. So in this case, GPS here or BLE, but I can also show other kind of things. If I want to have an idea of my coverage, do I have good signal or not? I can show the signal strength of each of the position I got. So around my house is pretty good. Usually green is good. If I look back again on the other dot that I had a mile away, we can see that it's not as good, but it makes sense. So those are the kind of things you can see. You can also show the spreading factor corresponding to those places. So same thing here. So in this place, I could have a signal up to SF9, for example. So that's for the map. Another thing that you can see with the application is more oriented to understanding what the devices are doing, but also doing some troubleshooting. And you can display a number of things. You can display data, so over time, showing the one of the technologies, so Wi-Fi or BLE. You can show the evolution of your battery over time. And here, for example, you can see that when I'm inside a house using BLE, it's really using almost nothing. When I'm going out and using GPS, so typically that was my car trip, it's using more of it. And back at the house, I recharge it here. So you can follow that type of things. What if you have to, again, either troubleshoot or if you try to understand how the device is working, looking at the message type sent by the device is very useful. So as I explained at the beginning, my device is configured in motion tracking. And so the purple dots show me every time my device is sending a motion message. So the dog started moving, stopped moving. And since it's a dog, it's moving pretty much all the time. When it stops moving, usually it's when it goes to bed and goes back again when it gets out of the bed. Another thing that you can see are in blue are the actual position messages. And it's pretty similar to the motion, except that, as I said at the beginning, I'm going to receive a position every time my dogs move. But if my dog doesn't move, I'm still going to receive a message that I configured every 4 hours. So at that time, for example, my dog stopped moving, went to bed. But 4 hours later, I still have a position because that's what I configured my device to do. Other things I can see here are if I shut down the device, I would have that type of message. If I change the configuration of my device, so as an Abeeway engineer, if I have a customer telling me, okay, I have a problem with the device, the behavior changed overnight, that would probably be the first thing I'm going to take a look at. Did the configuration change at some point? So that could be one of the things to do. And the last thing I'm showing here, I talked about heartbeat messages. So the device, if it's not sending a position message, I can configure the device to send heartbeats, just saying, hey, I'm alive, don't worry. Those messages cost nothing in terms of battery life, but they're still pretty useful to know the device is there. And if you want to change configuration and things like that. The next tab I want to present is about configuration. So from the application, you are able to reconfigure devices in any way you need. We provide templates for typical use cases that we've been using. For my dog, I just used the default template and tweaked it the way I wanted. So that's where I can, for example, change the tracking modes. So Olivier talked about those a little bit. So in standby, my device is only going to send heartbeats, motion tracking when he moves, permanent tracking at regular interval. I'm going to have a position. Just want to have the start and stop of the motion, or I want to have a step kind of counter. I can also configure all the different delays. So once my dog is moving, I want to have a position every 2 minutes, for example, here. If I have nothing else, I want to have one of those heartbeat messages every 5 minutes. When my dog is not moving, I want to have a position every 4 hours in this case. And that's also where I'm going to configure what type of technology I'm going to use to geolocate my tracker. In my case, because I have my BLE beacons inside the house, and I wanted to be able to track my dog outside, I'm choosing to use for both type of positioning, BLE and GPS. So once you have the configuration that you want, just click here, and that's going to send an uplink through the Helium network to the device to reconfigure the device. If you're interested, you can also click here to see the actual payloads that will be sent to the device to reconfigure it. So in this case, this payload would be sent to change the operation mode to motion tracking. You can also use one of the pre-configured commands to send to the device. So either for requesting a position, but you can also stop the SOS mode of the device, ask the device to send you its configuration, its versions, any kind of things. So sending this will send a message to the device to send that information. You can also manually type a payload if you know what you want to do there and you want to do something very specific, send it to the device, or simply type a payload here and decode it from there. So all those things is what you can do on that device configuration tab. And the last tab I want to present today is the Uplinks data log that is going to show you each individual message from the device you're working with. That is, I have all the timestamps of my messages, the type of messages, so you can filter on depending on what you want to look at, the technology that is used for position messages, and if I go on the right side, the payload itself. And if I click on the message, again, I can take a look at what's inside and what it means. So in this case, it's one of those heartbeat message, giving a number of the information, so firmware versions, things like that. The last tab, I'm not going to talk about it today because I don't have any data. It's about the proximity detection that Olivier mentioned. It's very similar to the performance monitor, but adapted to the proximity detection use case. And that's all I have on my side. Olivier, I give you back the sharing for the mobile application.
Thanks, Joe. Just need a second to share myself. Okay. So this is the mobile app that is not available yet, but it will be over summer. Actually, it's fully developed, and we are now trying to pass the controls of Google and Apple. They are quite picky because it's a geolocation application, and we need a lot of chit chat with them. But hopefully, the app will get released soon. So it's a lot simpler than the app Theo was just demoing. This app, on PC base. It's more for the power user. If you want to configure, there are literally dozens of parameters on the tracker. So for professional use, you would obviously rely on the PC-based application. But really for more casual use, if you want to recover your cat, dog, this app is better. You can configure multiple trackers. All the configuration is via Bluetooth, and they're all displayed on the map. If you click on the tracker, you'll get more possibilities to configure them. Obviously, you can trigger motion alerts. You can trigger SOS. If you click the button, you will be warned that it's a SOS warning. You can create a number of zones for geofencing. So in this case, I created a small zone around my home. So if a cat is going too far away, I get notified. The other things that you can do with this app is upgrade the trackers. If you go to advanced settings here, it will tell you if the firmware is up to date, and if not, you will be able to update it over Bluetooth. The modes are simplified. In the case of the professional app, you can set motion tracking, start, stop, all sorts of details. In this case, so you can see it's a real-time demo. In this case, you just have a choice between echo and intensive. So intensive will send a message every few seconds when the tracker is moving, and echo will update like only every 15 minutes. You can also request for ad hoc location. You don't know where your dog is. You want to locate the dog right now, plus switch to more intensive geolocation mode. You can do all this with the app. Last thing that I want to highlight, there are many features, but it's also sharing. If you click here, you can share with a friend, or typically if you're tracking your dog, the family dog, you may want to share the dog's position with everyone in the family. So obviously you can use that tracker not just on one phone. And that's about it. So this app will work obviously if you own a hotspot yourself anywhere around your house. This is the case for Tior. But if you agree with your neighbors who also own a cat or a dog, it will work really literally anywhere where you live. And in big cities, as Tior was saying, there is usually enough Helium coverage. So you get pretty much coverage everywhere. So that's it. It's available on iOS. I just did the demo on Android, but it's developed with Flutter. So pretty much the same user experience on Android and iOS. You can also access support here. If you click help, you can send us log files, interact with support, and rate the app, and obviously give a good rating, hopefully. So that's to come during summer. I hope you will enjoy the app. And that's it.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's get into some questions. I see you guys have been doing a great job of answering those questions in the chat, which is awesome. I mean, I think that's really cool. I was curious about just the durability of like the micro tracker and the badge. You know, I mean, if you're having on a dog or something, or you have a worker wearing that safety badge in, you know, like you said, oil and gas fields, like mining, construction, stuff like that. Like, how heavy duty are those? Can they take a pretty good beating? I mean, if a dog's just kind of running through the woods and stuff like that.
Yeah, they are waterproof, all of them. So you can, you know, if your cat goes out in the rain, there is no problem with that. They're also, yeah, fairly high duty against shock. These same trackers are ATEX certified. It's for used in mines and explosive environments. So for ATEX certification, they need a lot of paperwork. So those that we sell on the website are not ATEX certified, but it's exactly the same casing. And as part of ATEX certification, they undergo shock testing.
Nice. Are there any future plans or anything to partner with, like, say, you know, like pet product companies? Like we have Roughwear here and things like that. You know, I mean, those big brands that kind of market to those pet owners and things like that for the micro tracker at all?
So for now, we've been focusing a lot more on B2B, and this was because of the LoRaWAN coverage that was easier to get, you know, in a large campus oil field. But actually, Helium is solving this problem. So because it's a bit of a chicken and egg, and of course you can do large-scale B2C deployments. Right now, we're talking to the Helium community, but if you're selling this through normal retail, the first question they'll ask is, what's the coverage? And that problem is being solved rapidly. So this type of discussions are opening right now, actually, yes.
Cool, cool. All right, I saw a couple questions in the chat that maybe you guys didn't get to. One was really early. I saw someone ask what was the chipset in the tracker. I don't know if you guys covered that or not. Did you see that question in there?
Yeah, in that generation, it's the SX1262 from Semtech. And the processor is a sorry, the processor, not in this one, the processor is a Scilabs. And the GPS is MT3333, which is one of the latest generations from MediaTek.
All right, thank you. And Tior, it looked like you answered the monthly fee question. Are they still using data credits to pay, so it's not completely free? Is that
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant by the as long as you have connectivity.
Gotcha. All right, just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, thank you. Let me see if there were any other questions. I mean, just as far as like we talked about partnering with those other brands and things like that, but just for like future plans, improvements for, I mean, across all the devices and where you guys kind of see this going and expect to take it. Do you have any major future plans or improvements that you see coming down the line that you want to implement?
Yeah, we're constantly adding new features. You know, at this stage, I think anything for B2C is already there, but for B2B, we're getting really complex requests. You know, one of the latest features we added was angle detection. So on a dumpster, if the dump starts elevating, we can detect this. We can also count number of turns. If you place it on a cable reel, you can count the number of reels. So, you know, many features like this that are really useful in a B2B context. Longer term, we're about to release with Murata a module that will encompass all of the electronics in this tracker. And this is for mass production and people who are doing trackers themselves. And more people are looking for sort of shrink-wrapped integration of processor, LoRa, all of the GPS stuff, location stuff. So that's going to be a module released towards the end of the year. And that module will be using the LR1110 plus a GPS.
All right. I think that's all the questions I had, and you guys did a really good job answering almost everything in the chat. So if anyone has any last minute questions, type them in quickly. If you guys have anything to add, otherwise this was awesome, really exciting.
Quick question on audible alarm. Yes, there is a 80 dB speaker, which is surprisingly strong on these small trackers. And you can trigger it remotely if you want to scare your dog.
Someone just asked, will there be an end user web app?
What we've planned right now is Flutter apps, but we didn't plan any web app for now. It's actually very easy to design from the APIs, but right now we're focusing on the mobile app.
All right. No, I'm a pet owner. I've worked in construction and stuff like that. I can see this is really cool, and I can see a lot of different uses for these things. And thank you guys so much for coming on here. Thank you everyone for joining. And like one of my moderators put in the chat, this will be available, the recording, on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and listen and watch, or if you missed any of it, that would be great. All right. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.